So, we are creating a whole emotional wellness ecosystem, a one stop shop for everything emotional wellness. And we are doing it without the use of drugs, alcohol, or marijuana.
Anita Kumari, thank you so much for joining me on 20 Minute Leaders. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored
Thank
to be here.
I'm always excited to talk about happiness, and I have a feeling that we're going to talk about happiness over the next 20 minutes or so because you've had a fabulous career at so many wonderful companies as a senior human resource, right? You were at West at Kaiser and Google and
Yeah.
Verifone and different other companies that we won't go into detail here, but then you've transitioned into happiness and mental health, and you've written a book, Find Your Happy, which you've just shown me a second ago. Maybe you can show it again in a second. uh, Beautiful. And one of the things you told me that you're really passionate about is the space of mental health and
Yeah.
limiting beliefs and how to go beyond those limiting beliefs. So Anita, enough from me. I want to hear about you a little bit and about your journey.
Yeah, so I used to be in a high tech corporate career throughout my life. And then life threw me a few curveballs, and I had to learn how to throw aces and not give in. And that was the point in my life when I started going into emotional development and self growth and started doing courses like Landmark, Tony Robbins, Oprah, Deepak Chopra, and meditation and yoga and all that stuff. And because when I was going through stuff, I was in a very abusive relationship at that point in my time.
Oh
And
wow.
because of my cultural background, I wasn't willing to leave, even though everyone around me was telling me to leave. Like every weekend, like other people used to say, "Oh, Friday, everyone is happy that they have a weekend. Why are you so scared?" But I was scared to be alone in home with him, right? Uh,
Really?
because I didn't know what was going to happen. Because he had already tried to kill me like 3 times, and
Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, I'm sorry, Anita. Before we move on, I'd love to hear a little bit more because obviously the second part of this journey is going to be a wonderful one about how you're empowering other women now and you're inspiring other women. But as long as you feel comfortable, I'd love to understand a little bit more about what happened there and how you broke free of that.
Sure. So let me give you a little bit of a background of how I even ended up with him. So because I'm from India and I've grown up in a very sheltered and nice family atmosphere, so basically if someone will say something, I would trust them, right? And I met this guy who was my friend, and I was very young, and he told me he will kill himself if I don't marry him. And now I know that's crazy, but that time I thought he loved me. That's why and I thought anyway, I have to have an arranged marriage. Why not marry him? Because he loves me so much. So I got married pretty young and came here, and then I did my MBA and
Where is this in the world, by the way?
this I met him in India, but we came here as soon as we decided to get married because my parents wouldn't approve, his parents wouldn't approve, and we were very young.
Wow.
Yeah, and I had finished only my undergrad at that time, and I came here, and I think for 1 year the fairy tale lasted. But after that, joined a job. I started getting very successful, and even from my first job, I don't know why people started putting me with the VPs and stuff. Even though I was like scared that time, right? I was like a very junior person, but someone they saw like leadership qualities, and so every time I would have a meeting, he would try to sabotage it. I started doing MBA and got into Dean Scholar list, and that was like every time something like that would happen, that time he would get more abusive.
And
So
so when you
yeah,
say abusive, just to clarify, that is obviously the emotional abuse and
yeah,
feeling a
and
burden.
the physical abuse both.
Wow.
But every time, once or twice, I had gotten like mad that I'll go and tell someone, and then he would start crying, and then I would feel sorry for him, so I wouldn't usually tell someone. But what happened is, I'm a very happy person. I started totally losing myself in the sense I wouldn't even smile. And people who knew us, like who were common from our common school, they used to say, "What did you do to her? She doesn't even smile anymore. She used to laugh so much." But anyway, I didn't think any of it. I just thought if I change myself more, because he didn't like me doing anything which got me any recognition. So I stopped writing poetry. I stopped being on stage. I stopped pretty much talking to people, and got so underconfident that if someone would so much as say hello to me, I would start crying, right? And I wouldn't drive on
Wow.
freeways. I wouldn't even like go to a grocery store alone. And the people who know me then, they say that I always used to walk like with my head down, which I didn't realize because I was the one doing it, right? And I used to think of it, it's my fault. Like if I do this different, that different, it might change. And but nothing changed. And then because I used to go to the my doctor for everything he did, she referred me to a therapist who told me I should leave while I still can in one piece. And still
Wow.
I
Is
wouldn't.
that's what she said? She said you should leave while you still can in one piece.
Yes, because she says with his demeanor, he can even like break your hands and legs if you tell him you will leave and then pretend to take care of you. So, but I didn't understand that time. So that was my foray into mental health because, so I mean, finally I had a miscarriage because of him, and I even was scared if I go into like I was hiking in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and took me to like very deserted place where there was no one, and on top of the hill, like he was like getting one of his moods, and I was thinking if he pushes me right now, no one will ever know what happened to me, right? And that was my, I think, wake up call little bit. And another was miscarriage, and then I just decided to leave, and I just left with like a few clothes and few shoes. But after I left, he was, and I took restraining order, but he was able to emotionally manipulate me to feel guilty of leaving him and made me sign a power of attorney. So pretty much he kept everything. So anyway, so I started my life from ground zero.
And what?
And
So just for context, you're starting your life again at ground zero. First of all, I can't even believe what I'm hearing, and so I'm extremely inspired by the next thing that we're going to talk about, because you took that adversity and you're channeling that through to empower other women and other people around the world. But before that, give me the context. So when you leave with a bag of clothes and some shoes, how
yeah,
old are you? Where are you in the U.S.? What are you doing during
so
that time?
same, yeah. So I was out of a job at that time, so I didn't want to leave, but it was so bad that I could not stay. And so
Right.
I had a friend who said, "Okay, you can." My therapist also told me, "Don't live alone because he's going to come after you." So I had a friend, so I decided to. They said that I can stay in their house for a little bit. So I just
Wow.
picked up some clothes. I decided to. I went with them and started living there, and didn't tell anyone where I was because otherwise he would come and he was trying to like get me back. But my therapist told me, "Don't go back because you won't be alive then." Because now he knows that you can leave, right? Because anytime I would say I will leave if you do, if when he was misbehaving or abusing, then he would say if you try to leave, I'll kill you and kill myself. So I thought it was that way. But the thing is, I mean, if you have heard of severe narcissistic psychotic person, I think he was one of that. So he knew, like, see how he can manipulate me because he knew me from my childhood. I had no support system here, and because I was only allowed to be friends with his friends' wives, kind of thing. So, but still, I had some colleagues and some people who I think got sent to help me, and then then I joined a job within I think a few weeks of moving out, and so I started saving money. And meanwhile, like I know in California it's community property. I even like my therapist had referred me an attorney, and I thought I'll hire him, but he found out and he convinced me that attorneys take all the money, so I should not have any attorney. So I didn't have any attorney, and he had two in the background. And so basically he was able to threaten me
Wow.
and to like sign and make me feel guilty enough for me to give him the power of attorney.
I have to ask, the
Yeah,
parents back home in India, your
yeah.
community back home in India, are they a part of the picture at this point? Are they
No,
involved in any
no,
way?
no, they are not, because my family is very simple. Like if you tell them he did this, they'll say, oh, let us talk to him, he will get better, right? Because they don't know anyone can be that bad, that psychotic, and they're too far away.
But I
So
have
I
to say, so I
Yeah.
understand that mindset, but I have to, because in the last few months I've been hearing constantly, but there are so many stories that have come up of
Uh-huh.
domestic abuse and domestic
Yeah.
violence, not just in the US but around the world.
Uh-huh.
That hearing it firsthand now from your experience, it just brings up all these emotions of
Uh-huh.
reading all these articles. So I can't even imagine what it's like going through that.
It was really bad. Believe me, I didn't even know I will survive that year because I'd never lived alone in my house in my life. I was in a foreign country with no support system, no money, and even after I moved out to that friend's place, as soon as I found job, right? So, like I had no furniture. I slept on the floor till I was able to buy my furniture. And I had a
Wow.
friend who gave me one glass, one tumbler, one plate, some because I cook a lot at home, so some rice, some lentil, like everything. So she was like a angel for me, even though I didn't know her that well. And but she realized it, right? Because she's an older woman, and I took me, I think, a month or something or more to get the furniture, buy something, then gradually buy my utensils. Now I have everything, and I'm proud to say it's all my made. It doesn't belong to anyone else. 100% my hard work.
Yeah.
And during this course I kept on doing all the self development because it takes a long time to heal. So I wasn't
Of
willing
course.
to go into any relationship. I wasn't willing to date anyone. I wasn't willing to trust any guy because of I wasn't healed, right? So I'm glad that I went through all this trainings to really heal, and not just really heal. My therapist then started trying to put me on an antidepressant, and I know the side effects. So I decided I'm not going to take it. I'll start every day with a meditation, yoga, and some Zumba class or kickboxing, like something which is very like untoward of person I was that time. So that gradually got me out of my comfort zone. And in order for me to really be able to even trust or be like next to a guy again, because I mean, when you are really hurt, you are like basically you think everyone is the same, right? Even though it's a small sample, one person. So I started taking salsa lessons where you have to dance with a guy, right? A partner.
Yeah.
And
I
that,
love salsa.
yeah, thank you. Me too. And dancing is very great. I think that was also, so that gradually got me out of that, I would say, out of that fear. I mean, apart from my self development, and and then I realized so many of my friends, for even if like real things like this are happening, sometimes they are not able to get out of it, and sometimes they don't talk about it, or they feel ashamed, like I used to feel ashamed before. Now I am empowered, right, with this story. But and also I used to, like, I wouldn't even dare to like dress up or things like that, because always he would be very very crazy about it, right?
I'm
And
sure.
then yeah, so right now I feel that all mental issues can be resolved with natural mental exercises or hypnotherapy and psychology, and without medication too. I mean, of course, some people who are totally extreme, then they need the medication at that time. But most of the things like anxiety, stress, worry, panic attacks, OCD, moodiness, and not feeling enough, not feeling love, those things are self-esteem. They all can be resolved, and like I have resolved. When you see me a living example from where, if you see my pictures there, I look like 15 years older than I look right now.
Wow. Wow.
And
Yeah. So I'd love to talk about that transition because now you're doing such wonderful things with the new startup Happiness Factor, we'll say it now and we'll later, but you have also open positions for interns
yeah,
that I'd love to tell a lot of my friends about because it sounds like a wonderful opportunity. But
yeah.
you also wrote the book Find Your Happy. Talk to me about this journey in writing this book and what led to that.
Yeah, so people knew me as a high tech HR person because that was my background. So
Right.
I wanted them to think of me as a happiness and emotional wellness expert. And then people told me, oh, it will take 1 year to write a book. I didn't have 1 year because I wanted to create the branding. I said, I'll write it in 1 month, and everyone laughed at me. But when I'm dedicated, I'm really dedicated. For 1 month, I slept for 4 hours. I found 10 or 20 people to interview because I only wanted to write about real life stories. So I interviewed
Wow.
someone who had killed someone with 6 bullets, was incarcerated for life, but how meditation changed his life, and now he's out. He has a wife and a kid. Then I interviewed someone who had survived breast cancer, and she's also thriving. She's a good friend of mine. Then someone who had gone through debilitating accidents or very bad divorces, so much so, like I have a friend who lost everything in the divorce and still is fighting custody for his kid. And then people who have gone through abuse, people who have gone through, of course the abuse has some part of my story too, though he doesn't have my name. And then someone who was raped when he was 8 years old, and he never told anyone, and finally I covered his story. And now they found out that the same guy, under the pretext of helping those young kids because they were from very poor family, very like a big family, like 17, 18 brothers, sisters. Parents didn't have enough to feed in Chicago. And that guy used to tell the parents that I will give these kids like some work to stash shoe boxes because he had a shoe shop and he used to rape them
Oh
behind, and the
my.
kids didn't know they were raped. And so this actually story has given me the maximum kudos because many people write to me that reading that they don't feel ashamed and they got a closure, because people feel ashamed, right? Even if it's not their fault. Because and that's what I think the perpetrators always take advantage of, when you are too gullible and too innocent and you believe everything they say, right? Especially if you don't have a support system or if you don't know what's going on. So all the 10 stories in my book are real stories of real life people. And at the end of the each chapter, I've given how they have overcome and are thriving in life. So why can't you, who have so much going on? Because many times when I coach people one on one, they say, oh, it's easy for you to say because you never had anything bad. They don't know my background, right? So they think right now look happy, so I must have everything going so good for me all the
Right.
time. And so then I wanted them to see that no, not everyone has it going good all the time. The people who are really successful are the ones who make the best of what's happening and come out, learn enough from that experience and come out a winner.
Unbelievable. Wow. Okay, that's truly inspiring. And again, a lot of people can talk about mental wellness and happiness. A lot of these people are coming from from solid backgrounds,
Uh-huh.
from okay upbringings, but the adversity that you went through and the emotional strifes that you went through, I think is just inspiring that you're channeling that towards helping others. And so, in the last few minutes that we have, I'd love to learn about the happiness factor and what you're doing with that startup, because you decided to leave the traditional tech world and the positions that you've held before with human resources, and now you've transitioned into the startup. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I started my startup Happiness Factors 3 years ago. And that time when I started, even though I have some very good mentors, like my some of my ex VPs joined, some of the very famous Fortune 500 people are on my board, as well as quite a few doctors and NLP practitioners and hypnotherapists. And so initially, when I started, I had a few mentors, and they told me, "Who will pay for happiness?" Right? People think happiness should come free, and now everyone tells me you are in the right place, right time, because
Yeah.
I'm so I think I saw it much before others did, right? So that time I started, and then I wanted to develop an app that time when I started, and but still, like I did my research on Headspace, on Calm, and all others available, and I found what's not working, because many of my friends, the companies buy those apps for them, but they don't use it because they don't find it interesting enough. So I decided to do a different like way. So I made it more gamified and more interesting and more targeted towards the millennials. And it's I made sure that all the background is very happy and people can relate to it. And so right now it's still getting developed, and app is just a very small part. So I'm doing the whole ecosystem. So we have coaches on site where we coach people on anxiety, on whatever problem they come up with. Because first session is always free. That's called the strategy session, where we decide if it's a good fit for us or them or not. If not, I'll refer them to someone else. If it's a good fit, then we will take it on happiness factors, and either it will be me or someone else who will be coaching them. We also do lots of keynotes at different companies. Actually, I did one on mental health at Service now just 2 days ago, which went pretty well. And I'm sure I'll be called back to do another bigger session because many people were talking about that. Then I do lots of workshops and trainings. Right now, everything is, of course, on Zoom, but I love to
Right.
do in person. And I have done like right from 1 day to half day to 2 days at different companies, and mostly high tech because that's my background. But mental health is universally applicable. It doesn't have to be limited to high tech. And I also
Right.
did some talks for some high schools and some colleges here too. And I got called to do one at the Cupertino High, but it got postponed because of COVID again. And they were saying that mental health is so important for these teenagers who are working so hard to get into a good school, and the stress sometimes gets to them, right? So how to manage that and not get angry. So we are creating a whole emotional wellness ecosystem, a one-stop shop for everything emotional wellness, and we are doing it without the use of drugs, alcohol, or marijuana. So that's my tagline, that we not just help you get happiness, but sustain it without drugs, alcohol, or marijuana. And we are combining the Eastern methodologies of Ayurveda, yoga, Vedic teachings, Sanatan Dharma, and with the Western psychology, hypnotherapy, neuro-linguistic programming, MER, energy healing, and creating unique solutions which not just take care of the symptoms of mental health issues, but they get rid of the root cause so that people can live a happy and fulfilled life for as long as they want.
Anita, thank you for this. Thank you for the wonderful work that you're doing and for helping others around the world. Before we leave, I want to thank you for being so generous with your time as well. And I'd love to hear 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
I would say unstoppable, resilient, confident. Actually,
Anita,
I call
thank you.
myself a tiny beam of light.
I love that. I love that. Thank you very, very much.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe and stealthy, and I look forward to maintaining in touch. Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
You too.